Hello everyone, Sam Baxendale here, co-founder of Kinetik Hiring. So welcome to today's Insight on Demand. Today we've got Vaclav Koranda with us, who's a vastly experienced HR leader with many years experience as a HR practitioner in the Malaysia market. Today's topic is going to be the implementation of great HR strategies for driving a retention culture. Now, in my experience here in the Malaysia market, one of the recurring issues with HR heads and department heads looking to set up new teams and operations is the issue of retention. More often than not, companies are experiencing more than 10% turnover rates, which actually in global benchmarking terms is much higher than average. And this is not going to be good for business and not good for sustainability in terms of building the economic platform here in Malaysia and attracting businesses to come here or new departments being set up. So what Vaclav is going to talk about are policies that can support that, solutions to actually reverse the tide of attrition within businesses in Malaysia. One of the points that's going to come up today is there is a bit of a misconception around the reasons why Malaysians do in fact leave businesses. I think there's a popular belief that Malaysians are motivated solely by monetary gain and job hop every 18 months just to get a 15% increase, when in fact the body of evidence suggests that Malaysians are actually motivated by great leadership and learning and development opportunities. So this gives us hope. So Vaclav is here to talk about those things and to roll out hopefully some solutions that we can all benefit from when setting up our teams and HR policies within our businesses in Malaysia. Okay, so here to join us today is Vaclav Koranda.
Good morning.
Good morning. A vastly experienced HR practitioner with many years experience in the Malaysia market. So thank you for joining us, Vaclav.
My pleasure.
Cool. So we're here to talk about retention and HR practices linked to that. So to start, it would be good to get a little bit of a view from you, top level view on to what extent do you think that there is a retention issue within the Malaysia employment market? And also, to what extent, top-level view on how effective can good HR policies be in changing the tide of retention in Malaysia? So just general question to start.
Sure. I've been around for almost 6 years now, as you know. I think that there is a retention issue on the Malaysian market. I can compare the level of retention or attrition, as we can call it, to European countries and other countries I've been through in the world, and I can see that the Malaysian level, the level of attrition in Malaysia is I would say, way too high for what I consider to be a healthy level.
Okay. Yeah? What do you think is a healthy level? Can you quantify that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it might seem that, the ultimate goal is to reach zero attrition, but I don't think that's healthy for an organization to have it that way. I would say maybe around 5 to 10% could be, a reasonable level that allows you to constantly have an influx of fresh talent from the market. And a bit of a movement around the organization also allows people to grow within the organization.
Okay. So a certain level of attrition is healthy then, it's actually a good thing.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. If you imagine an organization, and I have been working in one or two which had very, very low level of attrition, close to zero, it leads to like petrifying the structure, there's very limited space for movement, unless you of course get a huge order entry and new business, and you have to expand.
Sure.
I think it leads to stagnation, and certain level of attrition is definitely healthy.
So anything up to 10% attrition,
I would accept,
is healthy.
Depending on the industry. I think if you look at for instance, call centers and customer support kind of an industry, 10% is a very good benchmark for them. For maybe more stabilized organizations can be down to 5%. I think 5% is okay. Anything between 5 and 10.
So based on your observations, many businesses in Malaysia are trading at more than 10%, which is bad for business.
Yes. I think I've only met one that was below 10%.
Yeah.
In IT industry, which I have the most experience in, the average is about 14-15%, which I think is a little bit too high. Yeah.
So what do you think are the factors at play here in Malaysia that are causing this higher than average attrition?
That's a good question. I think that the popular view would be that people like to jump or hop between jobs for money, and I have seen that as to be honest, I've seen that as well, but I don't think it's the main issue.
Yeah.
I think every market, every country has its specifics, and I think in Malaysia, the biggest influencing factor in retention is leadership.
Yeah.
I can't remember the source of the data, but there was an article recently based on research. They were asking basically the top factors that employees consider when they are choosing their job, the next company. And Malaysia was the only country in the world that actually named leadership among the top 5 decisive factors. So I think that tells something.
Yeah.
And I think anyone who wants to basically influence the level of attrition in their organization have to look after leadership in the first place.
Okay, so it's definitely not one size fits all when it comes to rolling out good HR policies as a solution. What might apply in Malaysia might be quite different to other locations based on your experience.
Yeah, I totally agree. Although I think you can find certain common factors which I would say hygiene factors which you have to get grip on if you want to really move ahead with retention. You have to make sure that your compensation policy is fair. You have to make sure that you have enough development opportunities for the people and so on. So these are the basics. Yeah.
Got it.
You have to fix the basics, and then you can look after the other stuff and potentially taking it to the next level.
Absolutely. So moving the conversation on, thinking about some of the technicalities of rolling out HR policies, much is made of data and the role of data in business and operational effectiveness. Could you give your kind of top level view of the role of data in human resources and perhaps an example or two of good policies that have been rolled out supported by data or insights that have been collected by businesses?
Yeah. I think nowadays when we see the progress of artificial intelligence and data analytics and all the technology that is behind that, I think it is time for HR to shift and make another, let's say, leap forward in this sense, because the problem in HR is that we have a lot of data.
Yeah.
We collect a lot of data about the employees, but a lot of the data is, so to say, soft data. Yeah? There's not much hard data. And the question is how to evaluate and how to basically put them together to make the right picture.
Yeah.
And I think that has only been made possible with the advancement, the latest advancements of the data analytics and so on, the technology. So I see really a chance there for HR to step up and be able to give more valuable insights to the business than ever before.
Yeah.
As you know, working with people is always a bit of a challenge in that sense. If you are working with machines or you are working with something that is directly measurable, you can get a lot of hard data, and it's not so difficult to evaluate. But let's say if I want to evaluate your performance, ideally I would like to have a gauge, a box. I put some electrodes on your head, and it will tell me, okay, some is like 12.5. But we don't have that, right?
Yes.
The human mind is pretty much like a black box, and we can just see, we can observe your behavior, we can observe your whatever is your output at work, and then we can try to judge what's inside, what's happening inside, what is your potential, and it was pretty much done with hindsight. We were evaluating the past. Now is the time with the new technology we can actually shift towards the future and go into predictive analytics.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which is something that is very interesting for me.
Yeah. So what is your view on the role of predictive analytics? Do you see that as potentially a controversial direction for HR to go in? Or do you see a role for predicting future behavior based on past behavior? How do you see that balance?
Well, obviously it's still a very fresh topic, and there will be obstacles along the road. But I think there is potential for sure. There is also risk. As with any kind of AI-backed system, the danger is that the artificial intelligence will just learn our mistakes, our biases.
Absolutely.
Because it's based on learning from what the humans are doing.
Yes.
Right? So that is something which we have to go into more closely when the technology is basically.
Absolutely.
When the technology gets there, because I think we are still at the very beginning. I don't see many companies using AI. I don't see many companies using artificial intelligence or data analytics in their HR processes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. So looking a little bit more at sort of the practical day-to-day of HR policies and the things that I guess I pick up regularly from candidates in terms of feedback. Much is made of the classic onboarding experience, and there are sort of many tales out there of bad experiences candidates have had and the damage that can do in terms of employer perceptions. I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about the importance of the onboarding experience, and also perhaps even extending that towards the whole employee experience across the employment life cycle. I'd love to hear your views on the significance of that and what good looks like when it comes to that particular area.
I think we should not look at isolated processes or policies. I don't think it's just onboarding, or it's L&D, or it's I don't know, payroll, or it's this and that. I think especially now when the younger generations are coming, they're entering the workforce, their expectations are different, and we have to adjust to that. I pretty much like to transfer the UX approach into HR, user experience. Basically, that is how our world is structured nowadays, right? We are all used to using mobile phones and whatever kind of clever technology, and there's a lot of UX experts behind it that design the whole interaction with the device for you so that it's pleasant, it's appealing to you, and it's easy to use. And I don't think we have been looking at it, looking at HR from that perspective so far. And I would pretty much like to, design the whole, you can say, employee experience first, and then it will basically tell you how to go about onboarding, how to go about other stuff based on what kind of business you're running, what kind of actually image you want to project, what kind of experience you want to give to the employee.
So you see scope for a lot more attention focused on the whole user experience design aspect of the employee experience.
I think that's the new thing that should basically blend with HR and influence HR in the near future.
Would you see that supported by apps, digital, the
definitely,
role of digital?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay.
That will play a big role in that. Yeah.
Fantastic. Moving on to L&D, I think you mentioned key motivators for candidates. Actually, leadership was one of those. I believe learning and development was also featured high up the hit list of what candidates are looking for. Either a lack of in terms of push factor, or looking to gain more L&D as a pull factor. Could you talk to us about what is your view on what good L&D policy looks like? What does a good policy in that area look like? What's your view on that?
I think I don't like to look at L&D in terms of a policy. Learning and development and education in general for me is more like I think it should be available to everyone. It's sort of like a natural resource. Instead of putting out policies and measuring hours of training and measuring ROI. When it comes to learning and development, I think we should make it. We should focus on creating L&D culture. You know, inculcating an L&D culture in the organization.
Yeah.
It should be pretty much like the air you breathe. You know, you should be learning naturally. Yeah? Nowadays, there are so many sources of data, education, material available for free at your fingertips. I think the traditional L&D model with needs analysis and ROI and so on, it's should be, I think, should be obsolete.
Yeah.
Should be replaced with something that is more based on culture rather than process.
Yeah. Perhaps more organic.
Definitely.
Yeah. More tailored as well.
More seamless. More like food. Something which basically fuels the progress of the organization.
I see. So Vaclav, if you can talk to us about the role of culture fit versus technical or competency fit. Does culture fit trump technical fit when it comes to making the correct hiring decisions, or is it a balance of both considerations, do you think?
I think it depends on the level of the role, actually. Yeah. If you are hiring junior people, I think you should focus more on the cultural fit.
Yeah.
If you are hiring senior people and let's say highly technical people, people with niche skills, I don't say you should, but I am afraid you have to disregard sometimes the culture misfit and sometimes create some kind of like a bubble in your culture for that specific person. It has happened to me in the past because sometimes there are just one or two experts in a certain field in the country, and you have to get the person.
Of course.
Yeah. So then you're pretty much
you don't
forced.
have luxury.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
It's either you get the guy and you get the deal, or you don't get the guy and you don't get the deal. It's sometimes like that. So there's a balance of these two things, but culture fit, of course, is a very important thing.
Yeah. But it can vary from situation to situation based on practicality. But for your more junior hires, definitely culture fit is.
Yeah, I would say if you are talking about the balance, then for the junior people, the cultural fit is more important, because then it depends more how they fit into the organization. They have more generic skills. You can teach them a lot if they are able. Whilst if you have a highly senior people with some specific skills which are hard to get or hard to learn, or then you have to compromise. That is what it is.
Can you give us an example of how you might assess for culture fit? Because it's obviously quite a general kind of a basis for assessment. So how do you hone in on, is this person a culture fit, do you think? Is there a good methodology for that you can share with us?
Yeah, I think talking about the selection methods, definitely some kind of assessment center is a good method, and I think you don't have to go into how to design all this, but that would be a specific topic by itself, right? But anything basically where you can see the behavior, you can observe the behavior of the person and their output, what they can produce, how they react in a team setup, and so on, how they communicate. Much more important. I mean, it's much better to obtain the information this way rather than just in a one-to-one interview.
Absolutely. Okay. So moving on to other areas of this sort of the employee experience, performance management. Much is made of the quarterly or annual review process. And I think it would be remiss not to sort of mention these things in the light of current conditions, post-COVID or new norm, whatever cliche you want to use. So I'd be interested in your thoughts in terms of the impact that COVID has had on processes like performance management, for instance.
Yeah.
And how these need to be conducted in the new norm.
Sure. Well, I think we have been seeing shift from the traditional performance management, these annual reviews and the scoring system and so on. We have been seeing this pre-COVID already. I think there's a lot of negatives associated with this. That back then, when it was actually implemented, I don't know, in the 80s, 90s, it was a good thing. It was a step forward. But now I think, especially with all the technology coming up and the changes, new ways of working, it became just a burden. Yeah. It's too slow. Annual cycles, even if you do it twice a year, it's not enough because the conditions, the business is changing so fast. The technology is changing fast. You have to react in a much faster, much shorter period of time than 1 year or even 6 months. And then basically it's somehow, I feel, it has never been properly used in terms of, I think it more frequently leads to labeling and other negative connotations than actually going to what should be the real purpose of the performance management, and that is help the employees to advance and get the best out of them.
So you think COVID may be a catalyst towards better practices in that sense?
I think COVID has been a catalyst to a lot of things. Sometimes people say that that was the biggest push factor for digitization of their company. I mean, traditionally, performance management was associated with time spent at work, right? And that's basically the whole underlying philosophy of the employment relationship. I trade my time for money. I give you from 9 to 6, and you pay me at the end of the month if I fulfill my time obligation, and that's basically what every employment contract says, right? Now, just recently we were in the MCO and then RMCO, CMCO, whatever MCO. A lot of the companies that were able to do it resorted to working from home so that they could continue. It was the only way how to continue with the operations. And of course, the question popped up, are other people actually working when they're sitting at home? And then there were other thoughts like, are they not working too much? Because it can have both, right?
Absolutely.
Some people, when you are not supervising them directly, they might actually tend to, the performance might slip.
So leading on from that, Vaclav, then, looking at cultures or positive cultures or otherwise, certain businesses might adopt a more surveillance-based culture, monitoring outputs very closely or even time spent working even, versus, the more trust-focused cultures where it's purely more outputs-based. I mean, what do you think is the ideal? Which style is going to win in terms of productivity and retention?
Very good question. I have seen both approaches. There are definitely companies that are trying to implement new surveillance methods whilst the employees work from home. Things like they're installing applications that monitor you through the webcam. If it's backed with some kind of AI, so if your face is not there, the machine assumes you're not working.
Right.
So that literally, basically, they chain you to the chair.
Right.
They monitor how fast you're typing. They're monitoring the noise, through the mic and all that. I think it's completely wrong. That's my personal take on that. I think this, whatever the COVID has brought, right, is a unique chance for us to shift towards the culture of trust and empowerment.
Yes.
And I seriously believe that if you have the right relationship with your employees, then they will always do the right thing for you.
Yes.
They will not try to cheat. If you don't have such a good relationship, then bad things might happen as well.
I see.
I think it's more. It can lead more towards the other extreme, which is overworking. I know that some people were working over the weekends, at nights, in the mornings, whenever, because they can be permanently connected and they can basically, there's no like hard stop, like you close the laptop and go to the car park and drive back home. There's nothing like that. If you're working from home, you're basically permanently at it, yeah. But on the other hand, I think it also, as another positive aspect of this is it gives the control sort of, if you apply the trust and empowerment culture, it gives part of the control back to the employee. Yeah. Because when I'm at home, I have X amount of work that needs to be done in the morning. Then let's say I can have a break. I can go and do a little shopping, or I can wash my dishes. Then I can go back. I have a call. I have a meeting. I have something. Then I can do something with my children for a while. You know, it can be much more fluent than when you have to drive to the office in the morning and back. It gives you more flexibility. So I think it can be a good solution to the work-life balance topic as well.
Do you think that leads to better productivity? Ultimately, if you've got that fluidity, is that good for business in terms of outputs and actually getting the job done?
Well, that's the question how you measure the output, you know. In many jobs, measuring output is not that easy as if you work in a production facility and they can count how many screws you produce per hour or something like that. I would rather think of it in a different way. What is the impact the individual has on the organization? I think that's the question we have to go into. Rather than measuring out how many emails have some sent this morning, how many phone calls, you know. I think we should ask, like, what is the value add of having this individual in the organization whilst not having the individual in the organization?
So measure it from a much higher level.
Yes, and you can look at it. I don't know yet how to measure it. I think that's the question that needs to be solved now in the near future. But you can look at it from, let's say, the perspective, like, if you have someone in your team and suddenly the person leaves. Sometimes when it happens, there's a little disturbance and then the rest of the people actually take over the tasks and it settles soon. Sometimes you feel that there's a gap even after a year. You know, that's that kind of
Absolutely.
Not sure how to quantify it.
Yes, tricky to quantify.
But I think that's the concept we need to go into.
Absolutely. Moving the conversation on a little bit, talking a little bit more about sort of HR concepts and trends that we're seeing. Much seems to be made of this phrase, organizational development. And I'd be very interested in your views on the role of organizational development. Do you see it as a bit of a corporate buzzword, as a bit of a kind of a fluffy concept that is not really adding any quantifiable value? Or do you think in these times of change that we're dealing with, that it plays a role? So if you can just give us your quick overview on what you think. How do you define organizational development, and what role do you think it plays, if at all? That would be very interesting to hear.
Yeah, I think very quickly, I think it's an emerging concept still. I think traditionally a lot of the roles that are associated with organizational development have been put on HR in the past. And there has been a discussion what is HR and what is OD and how it overlaps or how it should be separated from each other. I think it can be a valuable function in the organization, but probably not in every organization. I think especially big organizations have to constantly ask the question: are we having the right organizational setup at this moment for the future business, the changes that are ahead of us, or what do we have? How do we have to change? What do we have to change it? I think that's very valuable for large organizations to have that kind of a function. But of course, if you're running your small mamak somewhere in a shopping mall, then you probably don't need OD.
Absolutely. So it depends on the style of the.
You probably don't even need HR.
Possibly, yeah. Well, I think Malaysia does need good HR. So that's one of the pressing needs right now.
positive conclusion.
That's a positive conclusion for sure. So moving on to some more general questions, Vaclav. So based on your time in Malaysia and your observations of the market, from your observations and experience, what are some of the better retention practices that you've seen out there? If you can give us a couple of interesting examples of great policies you've seen, big or small, that have really caught your attention, you've thought that's a great practice that you'd like to bring into your business to build a great culture and even retain staff, help retain staff.
Yes, I think one of the best practices is stay interviews.
Okay.
I know it's not a new thing, but I haven't seen that very often in other companies. As opposed to exit interviews, which you perform when the person has already resigned and is actually leaving the organization.
Yeah.
And there's virtually no way to stop them, right?
Yeah.
You do the same kind of a interview with the same kind of a questions, but you do it along the life cycle of the employee.
Okay.
Before they even think of resigning, you're trying to catch whatever are the leading factors to the resignation or frustration at the workplace before it actually happens.
I see, preemptively.
Yeah? So preemptively, it's a very good method, and I think it can be very well combined with the new data analytics, with the predictive analysis,
right. Yeah.
where we can have basically automated sort of a prediction, evaluating many important factors that can play a role in this in this process. Can be that you can see that people that are between 3 and 5 years in the organization are more prone to resignation than others. So you can see that people with certain level of seniority or skills or whatever, basically it's up to the artificial intelligence to figure it out for you, right?
Sure.
So then ideally there should be some kind of a resignation precipitation score at the end of the analysis that will tell me okay, employee XYZ has 67% probability that he will resign based on all these different factors. Probably I should do something about it. Yeah.
So that's combining a good practice you've seen with this idea of predictive analytics and using AI. Absolutely. In your kind of ultimate HR setting, if you could create that. So kind of last of all today, just switching the question around a little bit, what do you see as recurring mistakes or issues that we see all too often here in the market specific to Malaysia that is really adding to the problem of attrition? There's one that immediately springs on my mind. I've seen this over and over and over and over, and that is sometimes I feel it's difficult for an organization actually to reward the top people adequately. Okay. I explain immediately what I mean. Okay. It happens especially if you have a lot of internal development, internal promotions. Some people can actually learn very quickly and they can advance very quickly, but the compensation is not always in line with where they already are in terms of their seniority. Okay. And companies make these mistakes over and over. They put certain mechanical limitations to the annual salary review procedure, saying okay, no individual can get more than 5% increase or 10% increase. Right. And if you go by that, and let's say if you are top talent in the organization and you start somewhere at the bottom level, you're having very low salary. Okay. If you add 10% every year, it will never be enough. Right. So easily it will happen that after 5 years, even earlier sometimes, someone else will come and say, I pay you the double. Yeah. Because you're already technically, but your seniority is already at such a high level that you're actually at a totally different level than what your organization is paying you right now. I see. And I've seen this in many organizations I've been working for. Right. It's not so easy to change it. But I think that's basically where
the biggest leak of talents is in,
Okay, so you're saying that company structures are literally out of sync with market rate. So your top performers end up on a lower salary than they should be in the market.
Yes.
Yeah, which is obviously a huge disincentive.
It is, and know, and the other factor is if you are, let's say, a fresh grad and you start in a company and you're willing to work your the bottom part off and learn and contribute and all that, you don't have. Your cost base is not very huge, is it?
Yeah.
You're probably still staying with your parents. You don't have many expenses. You don't have children. You don't have family.
Yeah.
But as the time goes, you learn, you progress, you get more senior. You also want to have children. You want to buy a house, or you want to buy a car.
Yeah.
You want to do this and that. And it's very difficult sometimes, the decision making, when you get an offer that is 50% or even 100% more than what you're getting right now.
Yeah.
Then
But do you think
the monetary factor can actually prevail?
Is that the fault of the market and the inflator influences of the market, or do you think those are fair factors and companies need to close the gap?
No, it's not. I don't think it's the issue with the market. Anyway, the market is a market, and so it's not perfect. But there's no better way how to figure out what is the fair amount to pay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it's the companies who have to keep pace with the market.
Yeah.
And ideally, that's what we all should do, right? We should have our salary bands, our grades, and methodology behind how to assign people to the grades and what kind of compensation to assign to the grades and all that.
Yeah.
It's just that the system cannot be too rigid to prevent the top talents to grow.
Yeah.
Maybe it's fine for like 80% of your people, the standard policy, the bands and whatnot, but the 20% of your top people will simply fall through.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And they will be subject to attrition.
Absolutely.
Do you want to lose them, or do you want to do something about it?
Absolutely.
So what I try to do sometimes is I try to assess and catch this kind of cases going back in the remuneration history and seeing how many times they were promoted and when they get promoted, let's say from one level to another, they're always promoted to the lowest amount in the level, right? So they jump from lowest to the lowest, and then actually they're doing the job, and they're probably doing more than 100%. Already heading to the next level.
Yeah.
And you still pay them at the low end of the band,
right?
Which makes them prone to being poached by another company.
Of course, and builds resentment, of course.
Yeah, and sometimes they are so much attached to your organization that they will not leave, but the frustration will build up, and then eventually the monetary and other family pressure and all these factors will prevail. And I think the the Pareto principle, right? 80-20.
Pareto, yeah.
So maybe the 20% top people do your 80% of success.
Course. Yeah. And that's going to harm productivity long term. Yeah, of course. Well, Vaclav, I think that brings us to the end of the Q&A session. So thank you very much for sharing those insights with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Pleasure.